fund and the team of people that I'm putting together, I thought this would be appropriate for others. So let me kind of get started on the different roles that you need within a fund. Okay, let's remember this. You want to make it a habit of switching archetypes. There's the lover, the warrior, the magician, the sovereign. You want to switch them, right? You have to look at people and use your intuitive nature of when to be the lover. And remember, the lover is aligning with people, is authentic. They're not pushing. It's about alignment. It's about understanding. So the lover is accepting who they are and where they are at the deepest level, understanding where they are. A lot of the times we can be so tough as a warrior that people don't appreciate. I was talking to a hedge fund manager the other day, and they had a family member within their fund that was dying. And he said to me, "Hey, Reagan, you know what I told him? That's just life." And I said, "Well, you're actually hurting your performance by saying it that way, because now you've got to deal with this person and focusing on you and having to work through their thing. That's a very human thing." So that alignment is very important. And that's what the lover is wanting to do, is align. And sometimes we got to be the warrior. We got to create this healthy sense of urgency. We say, "Guys, we got to get going. We're struggling here." Or we got to hit the numbers. Or it's about all of us. We got to get going. We got to be proactive and put energy into where we need to go. That warrior is creating a healthy, intelligent sense of urgency if you do it effectively. Not toxic urgency, but a beautiful, healthy sense of urgency. Or sometimes we have to be the magician. That's Brooke. She uses influence and inspires people with the sexiness of what she does, of what we do, and the unique recognition that we can get and the money you can make. The magician, she creates that motivation, that stimulation. That's maybe a better word. Motivation and stimulation is what Brooke seeks to create with a fund. She's actually plays on ego a little bit and finding out what motivates that person to go to the next level. That's her job. And that's what Brooke does so well. And then there's the sovereign. I'm sovereign. My job is to come in and create a compelling future. Where there is no future, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. That is the keeper of the vision, is the sovereign leader. Talk about the collective, the we. So the magician is supporting the individual. The warrior is driving a sense of urgency. The lover is aligning, making people feel cared for. That's what Tessa does really well, right? She does that. And then sovereign is speaking to the purpose, the vision, speaking to the service that we provide, the impact that we have on the world, even if you're developing a fund that maybe isn't humanitarian, right? It might not even feel like you're impacting or is purposeful, but it is. If the people within the organization are growing and you're touching people in a beautiful way and you help them feel great, if you're leading a fund and a group of people, your impact on them helps everything and will help the world. So remember to switch archetypes, have fun with these, and recognize that we all have the right, we have the obligation of switching the archetypes. Also, I want you to think about this. When your people hit deception, how do you get them to perform? Well, I get them to perform by the patterns that they play when they hit deception. Okay? So that certainty seeker, I like to call it the certainty seeker, the fear seeker. Those are people that, again, are looking at the worst that can happen and what you're asking them to do. They go to the worst. They only think of the obstacles or the challenges because they seek certainty. So they want to know that this is going to work before they put anything into it. And they'll even Google when it didn't work. Not when it did, but when it didn't, because they're seeking certainty at the highest level and they're challenged by that. So let's be careful about allowing that certainty seeker to go too far. What you want to do is train her, that certainty comes from inside. That belief that I have in them is more powerful than the uncertainty that they're feeling. They're probably not looking at the right thing. Let's look in. They're looking out. You also need to let them know that the biggest illusion, that there's no such thing as certainty. That's an illusion that they have. Okay. The certainty comes from our psychology, our spirit, our habits, what we do from inside out. Being valuable is the only certainty that you can create in life, because life finds value and value finds life. If you want to go deeper on that, Tessa, if you'd be so kind in the chat, maybe put that video that I did a few weeks ago where I talk a little on that. Okay.
Perfect.
The next category I want to talk on is the pretender. Now, you get a lot of pretenders within entrepreneurship because people confuse modeling and pretending. Now, what's the distinction between a modeler and a pretender? A modeler is doing it as a learning process of who I want to become. Prince modeled Little Richard and Jimi Hendrix. And you got Prince. And Prince had his own identity. People like his music. People love what he does. And I love how he took two beautiful styles, combined them into another beautiful style. That's modeling. And the person feels fulfilled because they have their own identity. See, a pretender doesn't like themselves. And that's important for me to say. And they think that if I pretend to be this other person, then people will like me. That's really all it is. It's more of a self-esteem play. You can almost tell the difference because you can kind of feel the unauthentic them in their communication. And they'll lie about things that they don't even need to lie about. Okay? And they do that to look good. Please be kind to them. Please know that they're not attempting to deceive you. They're just pretending. They want to like themselves. They're like, hey, if I put on this mask, then this person might like me. Okay? And that's what I picked up on that Brooke does so well. She's not a pretender. She's a modeler. She does modeling. Okay? There's this story that I remember reading when I was a young kid. I think I might have been about 12, 13 years old. And I read this story about this princess. Okay? And she was going to be the queen one day, but she was not attractive, at least in her mind's eyes. So she had this magician make her a mask. And so he made her this mask and it made her look beautiful. When she put it on, she liked how she looked. And then one day she forgot it was a mask and she became it. And then as a result, this guy asked her out on a date. It was a prince. So he shows up, probably how your dates show up, in a horse, right? He was this, is that how guys that pick you up in a white horse? Tessa, that's how Brian picked you up in a horse?
All the time.
So I now let me get back to the story. Prince asks her out, picks her up, says, get on my horse. This part I'm kind of making up. They're on the horse, and then she's falls off the horse, and the mask falls off. And now she's terrified because she's thinking, oh, what is the prince going to think? She's like terrified, right? Because he thought I was beautiful. But when he saw her face, he helped her on the horse. And when she got back on, she realized I am beautiful. Do you see? She became it. A lot of times people forget that they're learning, that they are becoming by just accepting that you have the right to be who you want to be. Some people always remember that they have on a mask. And when you remember you have a mask, you don't make the changes. And that's all we're asking people to do. It's okay to model. Just remember who you're modeling from is beautiful. Who you're modeling from is worthy. Who you're modeling from is absolutely you because you desired it. Look at that word when you think about it, desire. It's a Latin word. Look at what DE, right? Of the, and then sire means the father, of the father. So absolutely support them and recognize that. You don't have to pretend, just model and realize that everything we've learned in life is valuable, like our relationships and money and all the things that hurt us as an adult. We had a model because no one taught us as a kid. We learned algebra and calculus and other things in school that, in my opinion, isn't as useful as rejection and self-esteem and financial intelligence and identity formation, all of the things that I got to figure out on my own. And we learn it. I learned it as we're developing a fund. You're going to learn it as I help you develop that fund. What we're doing, guys, is we're showing people that one day you're going to have to be the parent that you didn't have. And instead of me becoming the parent, I show them how they can be their own parent, how they can parent all their perceived limiting beliefs, right? That inner child, that insecurity, they can parent themselves. They can do it. That's maturing, that's growing up, and that's making it happen at the next level. The pretender needs to hear that. Stay strong, get through that deception if that's where you're at. You guys rock, and I'll see you next week. I'm done. Any questions here?
I do. I'm going to throw
Why
a
don't you go
question at
first?
you.
Yeah.
Me? Okay. My question for you is, okay, let's say you mentioned that I'm a magician. I love that you said that. How do we, because you mentioned flipping between the archetypes in different types of situations, how do we balance that with staying authentic to who we are? How do we balance shifting between I need to be this in this moment and this is authentically who I am?
Okay, hold on. I've got somebody that I tried to ignore the call and then it didn't. There we go. Sorry about that. Somebody called and I went to hit ignore and then it answered. And so now they're hearing.
He's
Oh,
too popular
goodness.
of a guy. He's just so
Right, you-
popular.
Whatever. Okay, the question was, how do you have that balance? Oh, based on
Yeah.
personality types.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Because there are things that are more instinctive for me and more instinctive for you. But like you mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, sometimes we have to step into a role, right, to move a project forward. How do we balance that if we need to get it maybe perhaps a bit out of our archetype, right?
Yeah, we do. That's exactly. So in other words, whatever your personality type is, you want to be like a chameleon and kind of match theirs.
Expand on that. This is curious to me.
Okay. I remember on our very first call, speaking of boundaries, Brooke is so good with this. Do you know what she did talk about when I talk about pre-frame and mentioning it up front? Brooke said this to me, Tessa. She goes, you know the way most entrepreneurs, business people can be kind of type A? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes. Well, I'm type B. Okay. So what was she saying? I'll get to you, but I'll get to you when you're gotten to, right? So how would you those weren't your exact words, but that's just meant, look, just I'll get to you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's great about when you develop a team, all different types of personalities, okay? So Brooke, are there times maybe you may have a certain girlfriend that you know is more of a bottom line type person? Do you communicate to her more to the point than maybe you would a friend of yours that you know maybe likes the details?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really easy example because some people just need it, quick and dirty, as I like to say, real short. And some people, they want to know the why. And it is an individual personality thing.
And now, so that I'm not just giving you the answer, in other words, I'm not just giving you a fish. When you know that, how do you know that difference? And when do you know how to use it and maybe tweak your personality a little bit?
Absolutely. Some people, I love these people, are quite upfront and they say, I see the world this way. This is the way that I structure my life. This is the way that I do things. And that's part of the reason I like to be upfront is I would rather you not waste your emotional energy guessing. I'm just going to tell you how I see the world. But for people that don't, and that's a lot of people, I think it's an observation process and sometimes even a trial and error of, okay, I gave them a lot of detail and they seem confused. And that tells me I need to adjust my behavior moving forward.
So are you saying that you pick up on the body language, the voice tonality, or is it the fact that you already know that person?
I think it can be both. I think I can pick up on somebody's spirit pretty quickly. And also, okay, we're having a conversation. This person looks dazed and confused. That's a sign I'm doing something not quite right.
Very good. That is very, very good. Tessa, do you have a question?
I actually, it's not a question. It's just an observation what you were mentioning and what I do in my business. I mean, we use personality tests for team members, which I find is really helpful. And some of my clients will even go through it just so we can learn enough how to work with each other and leverage all of our strengths and understand the weaknesses. But not every client's willing to do a personality test. So I do think that it's just aligning it in the very beginning. You're communicating clearly. And I'm, and Reagan knows this about working with me. I'm not, I don't read as much into things because I trust that my clients are going to be super straightforward to me. I'm like, just, hey, this is how I am. If I'm not going to pick up on this, I'm just not that one reading into things. I'm going to be pretty straightforward with you. But I say it in the beginning because that's the personality that, if they are a different way, like Reagan and I know that I have to take the time to reply to Reagan because of how he's communicated to me. So we have clear communication in the beginning to say, okay, this is what we see. This is the things about each other that may, cause conflict at some point. And is that okay with us? And you have to make that choice. Is it something that you can work through? And, and the synergy when you have two people that can work in that environment, like you can really help each other because I can be very specific about getting him on a show every single week. Like we are going to make this happen regardless. So I think there's a lot of good things that can come from just being open and upfront. And if something bugs you, talk to the person, right? Be willing to have those hard conversations. Someone told me that there's a difference between peacemakers and peacekeepers. A peacemaker is going to have the hard conversations so that you can get that peace in your business relationship, in your fund, wherever you are. Whereas a peacekeeper is just trying to patch it over, right? To make it feel okay at the time. So I'm really trying to be a peacemaker.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. I was laughing because, go ahead, Brooke. I can sense your body language. You want to add something, and then I'll tell you about a Tessa story on that. Go for it. No.
Well, I've never heard that, Tessa. That's actually hysterical because I can feel in the past, particularly in romantic relationships, I've been a peacekeeper, right? I've just been trying to make other people feel good. But when you say peacemaker, I love that, right? Because it's preventing issues right up at the front, where we aren't wasting our emotional energy. We're not wasting our beautiful time on earth worried about what someone says if we realize this is just who that person is. And they're probably not going to change, nor do they need to.
Very well said. Very good, Brooke. One of the times when Tessa and I were first working together, there was a comment I maybe made on email that was a little tough, a little, I was like, you're being rebellious. You're being like Eve, like Adam and Eve kind of comment. And I know it slightly offended her, right? So then I felt we had this, I wanted to patch it up, right? So I scheduled the time to have a Zoom meeting and she's like clueless. What is he wanting the Zoom meeting for? What are we going to talk about? And so I'm like, okay, let's get this just done here. Okay. Do you remember that time when I said this? And she's like, Regan, I don't even know remember that email and then this? And she says, Regan, the way certain guys are, that they can get into a little conflict and then they just forget about it and they don't hold grudges. And I said, yeah. And she goes, I'm kind of like a man. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm kind of like a woman. Yeah. All right. So we got that one.
But when you know that about each other, it's not surprising. when something, and I think that's with your team, that's with people that, you're going to have to deal with this in your fund with investors, like all these different personalities. You have to really, I love how Brooke is, very intuitive. Both of you are very observant, and you're sitting back and kind of taking in what's around you and then deciding how you're going to react to it, and giving yourself like that space, that peace and that calm, that you can take the time to answer, or, take a breath before you say something. So I love everything that I learned from YouTube.
You know what, Brooke? You know what Brooke's body language was just saying when you said that we're both observant? Hers said, one of us is more observant than the other. Right, Brooke? Is that what you think?
I would say you're more observant than me. I'll be completely honest with you.
Yeah, thank you. I was flattering.
When I was 10 years old, I had a hard time remembering to learn how to shut car doors. This was a profound struggle in my lifetime. I would just go to the grocery store and then the car door would just be open. And my family was like, "Why are you doing this?" I was like, "I just never really thought about closing it." So you're a little more observant than me. There's some stuff I do that's pretty far right airhead territory.
Wow.
Now I am so good at shutting car doors now. Amazingly so. You will be so impressed with how I shut a car door.
I bet when you drive, you're good about making sure that it's shut if you're actually driving. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm not a great driver, but that's a whole other conversation. I'm a passable driver.
You're just fine. So, Brooke, on a serious note, would you mind sharing a little bit, very little, on my new fund, which again, Brooke knows a lot about it. Tessa knows a bit about it as well. Maybe give people a little bit. What is it that you like about this new fund I'm developing with? We won't say the name. We'll just say it involves trees.
Yeah, sure. And you're going to have to help me a little here because I could botch this. Like I told you prior, I'm 85%, not 100% of proficiency with this, but we're learning every day.
I want you to share what stood out to you.
Sure. I think what stood out to me is a couple things. Number one, I love your spirit. I think that the spirit behind a project matters so much more than the project. Of course, I don't want to be involved with things that are unethical. I don't want to be involved with things that go against my morals. But the spirit behind a project has a particular sort of energy. And when I did open your business plan, I opened your little document, and I did like your colors, by the way. That was another pass of the test. I felt that there was a heartbeat to the project. And when I say a heartbeat, I mean it's purposeful. I mean that I can feel movement. And that's just a very intuitive thing. Sometimes you'll open a project, or perhaps you'll read something and it feels very stagnant. It doesn't feel like it has momentum to go anywhere. This project felt very opposite of that, as in it does have momentum. It could potentially go in multiple directions, like the branches of a tree. So you have the nice tree trunk build up, which is the conceptual idea, but there are so many fun places to take this. And that's part of what excites me is it's not this one singular thing. It could potentially be a series of great things and a bit of an exploration and adventure, I'll say. And hey, trees give us oxygen.
They're part of what keeps us here alive.
I love trees. As an asthmatic, trees are amazing. They do so much for our earth.
Thank you very much. Tessa, anything you want to close up with or add before we finish up here?
No, I mean, you couldn't have said it better. I love the energy, the passion that Reagan has for the projects that he does, but more than, I mean, it's not just his project or the investors or the people directly involved, but this benefits the whole world.
Right. And there has to be a heartbeat to the project itself, right?
Right.
Because a wonderful person can be involved in something and the project can still fall flat if it doesn't actually have a heartbeat.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited. I know we're not revealing all the information, but you guys can follow Reagan, hit subscribe subscribe button so you can find out more as we release more information about this project and others. We learn from Reagan every single week, and then also get to explore some of the projects that he works on, the eco projects, and meet very cool people like Silver Swan. And we have so many people that we've met over the last couple months now. So definitely hit subscribe. And if you have any questions at all, you can let Reagan know. There's a forum on his website at Fifth Avenue Capital, and I'll put the link to the website because it's fifthAAVC.com. Did I get that right?
Very good.
So we'll put it into the chat so you have the correct one. And if you guys have any questions, use the contact form there. All right. Well,